Well, hello, Sarah, and thank you for joining us today. And unusually, you're doing this on behalf of your mum who had a project in Orangery. So what I'll start with is, Sarah, is to ask you about the project your mum undertook and why.
Well, she'd downsized from a large house to a smaller one, and she reconfigured. And on across the back of the house, she put an orangery. She's a king gardener, so she had a large conservatory with a lantern roof built. Conservatory, orangery, whatever we call it. But has a lantern roof and is a very bright room. It's where she spends most of her time. Yeah.
So your mum's particularly green fingers, so presumably
Oh,
like
she loves her garden. Yeah, she'd moved from a house with a very large established garden to one with a more manageable one for her now. She's in her 80s, so she needed something more manageable.
yes, yes, fantastic. And did you? I mean, in the end, it was about heat rejection, wasn't it? So was this a consideration during the build or after your mum had lived with it a while?
It was after she'd lived with it, probably 3 years. We'd been working on her to have a blind put in, but she couldn't find the right solution. She has a brother who's a builder who she consulted, and he came up with some very intricate contraption that someone could install, but we just felt it would not be used. It had pulleys and things everywhere. So I looked out for something that was simple, straightforward, and would just look not look intrusive in the space. And we found yourselves to install for us.
Like, so you had looked at other options, in fact. It sounds like there was a bit of mechanical genius involved in the other solution. Did you look at any other solutions apart from that?
Um, she'd approached a local blind company um, who had installed blinds on some of her windows. And they spent some time trying to work out a solution for her. It became clear that they didn't have a natural bespoke solution for lantern roofs, and they were trying to make something fit. Her brother, who I mentioned, is a developer and builder. He had some ideas for her, but you were the first company we approached that had a custom solution that would solve the problem and be really simple and straightforward.
Yeah. Now, how do you find that process? You'd have met Chris, presumably by video, over technology.
Yeah, I think Mum spoke to Chris. I think after I'd emailed, he got in touch, and I believe she did, yes, way back, have a conversation with him. And then it was very simple, very straightforward. Somebody, I believe, might be Martin, came out, measured up, checked the room, told her what she needed to instruct her electrician to do in terms of getting some electric to the space. And that was that until date of fitting. I think it went in at the beginning of last summer in May or June, and naturally, as you know, the weather heated up significantly about a month before it was being fitted. So we tried to get it done as quick as possible. But yeah, that was all very straightforward.
Excellent. And just so our other customers can know what the solution is, because it was an orangery, it's actually a very big space, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
had to be shaded. And in fact, so your mum went with a Twin Athena in a light fabric to be able to reflect the heat back out. So it's two
That's right.
blinds meeting in the middle.
That's right. The two blinds come across and meet in the middle. Her main considerations was she didn't want it to feel like there was a low ceiling in the room. She didn't want it to feel oppressive. And she wanted to keep the heat out, but also the sun sets and glares into the room during the summer. So when the sun's high, she's got some very tall trees around her, which give her some shade. But when the sun's high in the summer, and it spends the afternoon running over one side of the room, which is frustrating. So she uses it a lot for sun protection as well. So it's for heat retention, but also a significant one for her, because she's elderly, is keeping the room as cool as possible in the summer when it gets really hot. Because
Mm.
obviously it's a big room with lots of glass. It's three sides glass. The whole roof is a lantern roof. So it on hot days can heat up significantly. and it was for both reasons.
Yes, yes. Well, no, thank you, Sarah. And we did have an Indian summer, in fact, didn't we, in September, running through most of September. So it was incredibly hot. How was that experience? Because you had a real good test of the blind.
It's worked really well. We're really happy with it. It's easy to operate. She can adjust it very simply to have it partially open, fully open, closed, one side. So she uses at times one side just to protect her from the glare of the sun. At other times, she has it fully closed to protect from the heat. In the summer, I think she'd let the room cool. She'd have it open at night and then close it as soon as she got up in the day at sort of about 6 o'clock. And then it certainly improved that room for the summer. Previously, she has another small lounge, which is a gloomy lounge, which stays very cool in the summer. And previously, she'd had to retreat to that quite a lot during the summer months, and last year very little. So that was really pleasing.
And it's wonderful. It's her favorite room of the house.
Yeah, she hates going into the gloomy lounge. So that was a real consideration in putting a blind in to help keep her in her space in the summer, her favourite space, and keep it warmer from the get-go in the winter. So she finds that we're having a cold spell at the moment. This winter, she's come into the room in the morning and it's retained its heat all night. She has a wood-burning stove in there, which she damps down at night and then gets going in the morning. And she has underfloor heating. She has everything she needs, but she finds it keeps the room lovely and moderate temperature when she goes in the morning during the winters. So it's worked
That's
well.
something you knew was going to happen, that it was going to stay a lot warmer in the winter.
Yeah, we expected to, because obviously all the heat just goes up through to the roof, and it's a lantern, so it sits high. So there's a lot of space for the heat to rise to. So closing the blind in the afternoons in the winter keeps all the heat in the room, and then that stays overnight. So that certainly works.
Fantastic. And well, and the installation went well, I trust.
Yeah, the installation was very smooth. If I was to say there's only one thing that niggles us about the blinds, it's that they're difficult to remove the flies from on top of when flies go above them. But you've very kindly sent Martin back to Mum's a couple of times, I think once, maybe twice now. He did it at the end of the summer. It's just that, as you know, she's a lady of age. She can't step up onto anything to access that top. But that's a tiny implication, and you've very kindly, Martin's popped by when he's been in the area and just removed them from the top. But we can't think of a way of stopping flies buzzing around in a room.
No. No, and the million-dollar question is, would you recommend, Sarah, would you recommend Window Treat to friends and family?
I would. I think it's a fair price for the product you get. It's a good quality product. It's worked perfectly for us so far, and we expect it to do so for years ahead. So yeah, it's been great. And in terms of how it looks in the room, it's as when it's open, it's lovely. It still lets the fabric she chose still lets light come into the room, so it's not like having a solid ceiling. And she's got a neutral colour, so when it's closed, it doesn't feel like she has a low roof at all. And when it's open, you wouldn't notice the mechanisms there. So yeah, I would recommend the View, absolutely.
Well, that's music to my ears, Sarah.
That's a pleasure. That's a pleasure.